Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite video game character of all time. Sorry Mario, but Sonic is just so cool. He has the best shoes, the best design, super fun gameplay most of the time. Yeah, the Sonic game series has actually been rather hit, miss, or so mid that the game was straight up forgotten when it comes to both gameplay and the story. I can probably count all the good mainline Sonic games with both my hands, and that's not exactly what I'm trying to do here. I can glaze Sonic all I want, but that doesn't change the fact that Sonic 06's original release is still a thing, and that Sonic 1's level design for the most part contradicts the whole point of Sonic's character: to go fast. So I'm gonna try and find out why Sonic can't just have a consistently good run of games like Mario does by recapping the entire mainline Sonic game series. That means I won't be covering the handheld Sonic games, but if this video does really well, then I'll drop a video on the handheld games. If you like Sonic, then subscribe, we can be pals or whatever. But if you don't like Sonic, what are you even doing here? I'm just kidding, thanks for clicking on the video. Also, as a disclaimer, I'm not even going to bother talking about the Sonic Boom titles because I don't count that as part of the mainline Sonic games, and also that would be a major waste of all our time. Alright, let's begin. When Sonic was created in the 90s, he took the gaming world by storm. I mean, there wasn't much competition, but to say the game didn't change the 2D platformer genre would be just completely false. Where Mario was at a very steady and beginner level pace and was easy to grasp from the jump, Sonic was just speed, bruv. The gimmick was that you have to try and beat the game as fast as possible, whilst also collecting rings which can both protect you and send you to special stages, where you can attempt to collect the Chaos Emeralds, which eventually can turn you Super Saiyan, into Super Sonic. The concept for Sonic is actually extremely innovative and creates a clear distinction from competitors. However, the actual execution of the idea was not so great in Sonic 1. Firstly, the level design in a good chunk of the game didn't actually allow for you to have fast-paced gameplay. And I'm talking about you, Marble Zone, I hate you. And also, the special stages in Sonic 1 are a nightmare to play through, since they have LSD-like graphics and forever spinning obstacles, and it just makes my head ache whenever I play it. Especially when I was playing on my 3DS one time, I actually started tripping just watching it over and over again. The follow-up game from Sonic 1, Sonic CD, also has a bit of a similar problem, although I definitely see improvement. The level design looks amazing, as in the pixel art is gorgeous. However, actually trying to commute from A to B is kind of jarring, since there's like a million little things trying to bounce you around in one flipping spot, but the music, intro, and special stages are so fire, so like, I'll give this game a pass. But Sonic 2, in my opinion, was the magnum opus of the classic Sonic games, as it practically executed the Sonic concept better than Anakin Skywalker executed those children. The level design allows for you to use your speed to your advantage, and the special stage is actually quite tolerable. Well, unless you're using Tails. Also, the spin dash was introduced, which put even more emphasis on going fast, and it kind of made you a little bit more invincible. The game also was Tails' official debut, whose government name is Miles Prower. Are you serious? I think it's more funny that Tails' character has nothing to do with speed, but he's named after a measurement of it. But I love this game, and I personally think this is the best of the classic Sonic lineup. I'm not going to go into too much depth with Sonic 3 and Knuckles or Sonic Mania, although I do absolutely love these titles. They are similar to quality in Sonic 2, and also a cool thing to note is that Sonic Mania was developed by fans and just was licensed by Sega. So I don't think it would be fair criticizing Sega when talking about it. But Sonic 3 and Knuckles, my only issues are that some of the level design is just not fun. Like, it's not terrible, but whereas Sonic 2 had banger after banger after banger, Sonic 3 and Knuckles had banger after banger after water. But there are a couple more 2D Sonic games that I will cover soon, and no, it's not Sonic Spinball. That game is in like top 3 category, of course. I mean, why wouldn't it be? When the mainstream gaming industry transitioned from 2D to 3D, there was a bit of a struggle for certain franchises, and in my opinion, Sonic was one of them. Sonic 3D Blast is a thing, and I could talk about it, but A, Scott the Woz already did a great job covering it, and B, it's not even actually 3D, it's just a really weird camera angle. Then there was Sonic R. What even is this? But I actually kind of think it's funny that they made a Sonic racing game, because it makes sense, but the execution wasn't that great because I guess limitations of the console they were trying to put it on. But finally, Sega cracked the code and was able to create a new hit Sonic series, the Sonic Adventure duology. Now, I'm gonna take off the rose-tinted glasses for just a second. I don't wanna lie to you guys. The thing with Sonic Adventure 1 is, it may have the trendy Dreamcast low poly aesthetic that we all love, but 7 out of 10 times, the actual gameplay is very annoying. Sonic just doesn't respond right to my controls. He moves just a little bit too much when he's airborne or rolling, and pretty much controls like a plastic bag in the wind, especially when he's going super fast. Now, I haven't played the game on Dreamcast, and I've only played the infamous DX version, so all these issues are known and expected, and not to mention that the game is split between 5 characters, which I personally am not the biggest fan of. I refuse to knock on the level design too much because it's actually really cool and I love it, but I can't enjoy myself properly since Sonic doesn't move how I want him to, which causes him to, no! Quite a lot. But luckily, Sonic Adventure 2 not only kind of fixes this, but it includes one of my favorite characters of all time.
Disgusting black creatures, get out of my sight.
The gameplay improves massively, especially with the first amazing stage, which I would argue is one of the best first levels to a game ever. Sonic continued to create amazing 3D experiences with the iconic Sonic Heroes, which consisted of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles in an unstoppable 3-man band, and the other side characters being split into teams of 3 as well. The pacing and music of the game is great, and all the characters feel necessary, as each member of the team will have their own certain strength. The game does get a little spammy at times, but it's mostly a great experience. After this era, we then entered the age of what's known as the boost games, such as Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Colors, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Generations. These games all focus on speed and are kind of like mobile endless runners, but like on steroids, and required high skill to do good in. These games defined 3D Sonic and created the new modern era for the character, with his quills being longer, his fur being darker, and different versions of his shoes having to exist because Sonic has the best crep game. And not to forget his moves such as the homing attack, boosting, grinds, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater moves to an invisible skateboard. My favorite games out of the boost era are low-key just all of them. I love Unleashed as it has great level design, music, and Sonic controls very nicely. Colors would possibly have been my favorite if it weren't for the fact that the damn 2.5D levels are kinda trash. They sold the game for me a little bit, since all the classic Sonic functions like the spin dash are either gone or just turned into wisp abilities. Sonic Generations is a beautiful game. It fixes the 2.5D by having classic Sonic fill out that role for the most part, and the modern Sonic levels are great too, and has some of the older levels return and reimagined into different perspectives. Also, by the way, I'm looking forward to the Shadow Generations game, even though Sega are known for not doing too great when it comes to remasters. Things were looking great for Sonic, and it actually was an amazing time to be a fan. So like, where did things go wrong? Oh yeah, I got so wrapped up in Peak that I forgot you guys existed. I liked it better that way. So, actually, Sonic has had quite a few stinkers in his lineup of games, and although there's about a million more including certain Game Gear and 3DS titles, this isn't an LS Mark video, so I don't have 3 hours to cover every dookie Sonic game. So I'll go chronologically between the Sonic Adventure games and the Boost games to one of the worst Sonic games ever made that was originally titled Sonic the Hedgehog. But because this game is named exactly after the original Sonic game, and because it was also so bad that it doesn't deserve to include the and Hedgehog in the title, it's been dubbed Sonic 06 by fans for no other reason than the fact that it came out in 2006. Now ironically, in recent years this game has actually proved to be really fun, with a fan remastered version of the game called Sonic P06. But the original game had several problems, such as the insane glitches, the high speed levels which were extremely difficult to complete, the ridiculously long loading screens, and that beautiful opening cutscene which is on DreamWorks level of animation, only to edge us by revealing the true game's looks, which are The game doesn't actually look that bad, but in comparison to the cutscene, it diminished the actual game's look. This game, for the longest time, just didn't get any respect. And I was one of those bandwagon haters. I barely have played this game, but there were some cool things to come out of it, like the game being Silver's debut, and that one cutscene turned into a meme of Silver getting Trouble in Paradise kicked in the face. However, I'm glad to see the redemption that 06 has been getting, but I can't say the same for Sonic and the Secret Wings, which I don't even know where to start. The game is just a damn auto runner, so like it's literally just temple run. That should say enough about it already. You also have to use motion controls to move around, which Makes sense considering that it's a Wii exclusive, but it's so annoying since damn near nobody enjoys motion controls. Yes, whilst jerking my controller like a ketchup bottle is great cardio, the buttons are on my controller for a reason, you get me? I got nothing against motion controls, but when it's the main and mandatory function of the game, I get angry. And the whole gimmick in general is just stupid to me. At least Sonic and the Black Knight is an enjoyable game to play. But not only is Sonic and the Secret Onion Rings not fun to play, but it's also got this weird medieval theme, and its level design is clapped, and I'm done talking about it. But if you thought that was the pinnacle of bad Sonic games though, then you'd be half right, since I'm actually going to put this in the big 3 of bad Sonic games. The 2 other spot holders being Sonic 4, not Mania, this crap, and Sonic Forces. Sonic 4 has a million things wrong with it, and I don't even want to waffle on about this one, but problem 1 being the game is just extremely short. I'm not just talking about the first episode being too short, why the hell is this game split into episodes, but because both episodes that were made combined are too short. Then also Sonic 4 used the modern designs, which just confuse people because now it doesn't seem to be a part of the original classic Sonic trilogy. And then the biggest problem is the gameplay. Everything just feels off in this game. It's not like Sega can't make a good 2.5D platformer, because the levels and generations exist, for example, but for some reason it feels like this is just a mediocre mobile game. Oh wait, it pretty much is a mobile game! I'm not even joking, this game feels like a mobile game which was ported onto consoles and PC, which seems to be the case since the first place I ever played it on was on my Kindle Fire HD. Then Sonic Forces has its problems with being too linear and short as well. The zones in the game don't even get to their peak before they end, and the game can be beaten in a few hours, leaving you just feel drained and bored. Also, Forces allows for you to create OCs. Oh no, look, I'm sure that some kids out there will have fun making their own Sonic cast member, but hey, in my humble opinion, there's just too many weird Sonic OCs out there in this world, and I personally don't need Sega to be endorsing this. So as we saw for every good Sonic game, there will always be a bad one or a mid one hiding around the corner. But I think there is a kind of pattern here with the bad Sonic games. Although Sonic initially was a character which changed the game and was very innovative, but there is clearly a pattern of Sega finding something and either rolling with it if it works, or seeing trends of other competitors do something and try to capitalize on those trends. Sonic and the Secret Rings' use of motion controls was done to work hand in hand with the Wii, as the Wii's motion controls was its main gimmick and the console was selling really well at the time. This can be seen with the success of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games as well, and other uses of motion controls in other games. But then by banking Secret Rings on using too much motion controls, it actually ruined the game. It probably explains why Sonic Colors and the Black Knight don't use motion controls nearly as much and can be played pretty much completely without them. Another major issue is, for some unknown reason, Sega has no idea how to make a good Sonic remake or remaster. It's almost become a guarantee that whenever a remake of an older Sonic game is being created for new consoles, that we can assume correctly that it's going to be cheeks. Earlier I spoke about how my issues with Sonic Adventure's gameplay is blamed partially on the fact that I've only played the DX edition, since it's the only version available, unless you buy a Dreamcast, an original copy of Sonic Adventure, or steal it. The DX version is known for not having good controls, and also for some reason still isn't in widescreen, which isn't a problem for me personally, but I see why other people complain about it. So Sega, if you're watching this, why don't you make a good Sonic Adventure remake? Please. Then there's Sonic Colors Ultimate, which is notorious for the glitches and other issues which had led to many just play the emulated versions of the game instead. Sonic PO6 could be seen as a remaster that ended this cycle, however I personally don't agree with this, as it isn't a remake from Sega, but by a dedicated fan. Then in 2022, that's when things got a bit messy. Sega released Sonic Origins, which arguably yes is the definitive way to play the classic Sonic games, but a lot of people were upset with Origins for many good reasons, one being the fat price that it was originally put at, which was pretty ridiculous since essentially the game consisted of 3 mobile ports that were slightly updated and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Also, people were upset that Sonic 3K didn't include the Michael Jackson soundtrack in this version due to legal reasons, which led to some of my favorite memes such as this. In my opinion, the problem when it comes to Sega porting or remastering Sonic games is just effort. Low-key, I am a little bit worried for the Sonic and Shadow Generations remake, since Sega have this pattern of screwing up their new-gen remasters, or just not living up to standards. Sonic Team clearly are capable of creating good games, but they'd rather just get an old one onto a new console without properly adjusting things to fit the new gen's controls and look correctly, because that means more work for them. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering why I left out the two newest Sonic titles, Sonic Frontiers and Superstars, and one of the more forgotten titles, Sonic Lost World. You guys are probably commenting how I'm an idiot for doing so, but I actually wanted to save those games for my next reason as to why Sonic games can end up being mid or not well received. So I'm gonna keep it a buck, no tax added. Sonic Lost World is a game that I have never played. It doesn't look bad per se, however, other than the 2D visuals and effects added to the game, its graphics aren't that good looking, and I can't come to a proper conclusion on what I don't like about it. In theory, from what I personally like, I should actually be a fan of this game, since the worlds and levels seem to match Sonic's franchise very well, but the execution just makes it look kinda yucky. Maybe it's because it was originally made to be a Wii U exclusive, but Breath of the Wild came out on the Wii U, so that's not much of an excuse. Also, somehow the Mario and Yoshi DLC has a much better look to the game than its original environment, which is just bonkers to me. Then there's the villains of the game, who are pretty forgettable, so forgettable in fact that I don't even remember their names. And this can be perfectly demonstrated as they haven't made much of a return to any Sonic games other than Sonic Dash, which is a free-to-play mobile endless runner. And I'm not trying to bash on that game because I used to play it a lot when I was a kid and I still really like it. But Lost World's gimmick of rotating the spherical surfaces and stuff does kind of ring a bell to a competitor who pioneered this gimmick, and also who was very successful in doing so. I just can't think of the name right now, how strange. Now fast forward a few years and somehow Sonic Frontiers was able to receive backlash the second that test footage got released. And although the game didn't look too good in that early footage, it definitely did not deserve more than half of the backlash it got. Starting with the fact that some of these complaints I was seeing are absolutely ridiculous. Whilst there were people who were actually criticizing the game as some of the animations were a little bit janky in the early footage, there were some other people who were complaining about stupid things, such as one person claiming that Sonic's quills were too short. There was also somebody complaining that the game was reusing floor textures from Sonic Forces, which... why is this a bad thing? Sonic Forces was bad because it wasn't fun to play, since levels were short and mostly unenjoyable, not because the grass wasn't greener on the other side. However, I'm not gonna lie when I say that Sonic Frontiers isn't my #1 favorite Sonic game, especially since its aesthetic is very Breath of the Wild-y, when I don't think anybody actually asked for that. I do think that it is very, very fun once you get the hang of it, and it is about time that we got an open world Sonic game, and the execution gameplay wise is pretty much perfect. I'm not trying to be that guy, but the design of the islands in my opinion aren't the best. They serve their purpose of exploration quite well, but you kind of know where everything is after a while and it gets a little bit boring on the island. The cyberspace levels were pretty addictive, but I'm not a fan of some of them because they pulled the Sonic colors by making them 2.5D cyberspace levels with modern Sonic controls, and I hate that. But I can't fully criticize Frontiers since I haven't even got too far on the second island, since my Switch has no more storage to update the game. Also, I need to mention the fact that the Switch edition is pretty meaty compared to the PlayStation and Xbox versions. To be honest, the console is essentially a handheld on steroids, hence why the Frontiers Switch edition visibly lacks a lot of the flair and beautiful graphics that some of its competitors have. But the game does do a lot of great things other than just open world, which makes it stand out. Sonic has a lot of fighting combos and moves that you can unlock along the way, which makes leveling up actually feel a lot more important and relevant since you need it to unlock those certain moves. Then there's also the great mini-boss battles and the phenomenal final boss fights with the Titans who rule each island. And although Sonic Frontiers' soundtrack sounds kind of like a Sasuke AMV from 2007, I love it, I don't know. It's kind of nostalgic to me. One thing I really wish Sega did though was just make the game more, you know, Sonic-y, because these levels don't scream Sonic at all, but more Zelda Breath of the Wild, but in Unity. Then finally, there's Sonic Superstars. Now, I haven't got the chance to play this game yet, so I'm not going to go crazy with criticisms, other than the fact that it does look kind of just standard. The game doesn't seem to be as innovative or creative in its level design in comparison to previous Sonic 2D titles. Some of the levels do look cool though, I'm not gonna lie, I'll throw up some ones that I like. I've also heard that the physics in the gameplay doesn't feel too right, which has been a complaint with majority of the 2.5D Sonic games, so that wasn't that surprising. And the similar release date to Mario Wonder is also kinda sketchy, but it's not like Sega were copying Mario or anything. Oh wait, no, I'm seeing Sonic duplicates just like how Mario did it with the cherries in 3D World. Sonic copied Mario, time to tell Screen Rant and Watch Mojo. Now with all of this, we've got to be asking the question, will Sonic get better? To be completely honest, I know for a fact that the Sonic games can improve, but there has to be a change in attitude from both people at Sega and the fans if we're ever going to see this happen. We've clearly seen that Sega has the capability to create great Sonic games over the years. However, in recent times, it's been that Sega have been releasing great Sonic levels and moments in their games rather than delivering an entirely great game. Obviously, it can't be a 100% amazing experience. There's always going to be some stinkers in certain levels, you know, that's just the nature of gaming. Although I don't understand how after so long with all the material they have for reference, Sega still failed to deliver a new Sonic game that we can all finally agree is one of the greatest of all time. The fans don't make things any easier though, because the minority continue to make ludicrous complaints which don't actually help the games improve, but just help these guys get their 15 minutes of fame on Twitter. Wait a minute, am I one of these guys? I really want Sonic's games to improve and show why he once was able to stand toe-to-toe against Mario. Wait, that sounded wrong. But this Sonic is not the Sonic he once was. My favorite Sonic game is still Sonic 2, which is fine because that's an amazing game, but that shouldn't be the case because that game was released in 1992. I wasn't even born then. My second favorite Sonic game is Sonic Mania, and Sega didn't even develop it. Then my number 3 goes to Sonic Adventure 2. More modern titles should be in my top 3 list, but unfortunately they aren't, and they've been relegated to top 5. If I were to decide what would happen, I would say Sega should probably attempt to make a game that actually fits the Sonic character again. Because a big part of the problem isn't just the gameplay, but a lot of these games don't feel like Sonic to me. Frontiers, 06, they don't feel like a world that Sonic really belongs in. I mean, look at this. He sticks out like a sore thumb. If we compare this to Mario, his lineup of games does something different each time with every new release. Well, excluding Mario Bros 2 and the later games in the new Super Mario Bros series. And also Mario's games always feel like they were made to match him. And especially if you look at the 3D Mario game series. Almost every single one builds off the other one by adding something to the table. 64 is the first 3D Mario platformer and it's amazing. The controls are kind of broken, but newer ports of the game fix that for the most part. Sunshine might be the hardest game of the series, but it has the Flood which adds to Mario's moveset, and it introduces Bowser Jr. Galaxy 1 and 2 have the planets, which are extremely creative and innovative. 3D Land and 3D World adapted their linear style of 2D Mario games and made it into an amazing 3D platformer experience, and introduced the catsuits as well. Odyssey introduced Cappy, which was an incredible addition to the Mario moveset, and Bowser's Fury was kind of an enormous playground which had the island, and it combined a lot of the gameplay from 3D World and Odyssey. It's not like the storylines are on a Shakespearean level except for like, you know, Galaxy. Half of the games include the classic Bowser kidnapping Peach storyline. Whereas for some reason, Sonic will be out here in some of his games on some Wizards of Waverly Place crap, or hiding from the full moon, or kissing human princesses in some of these games. Yeah, I don't think I forgot that, Sega, that was really weird. Ironically, Sonic kind of went backwards, then eventually just halted, as the adventure games had great level design and mixes of linear and explorative levels. Then whilst they tried to continue that in 06, the technical issues messed it up and people hated it. Then whilst the Boost Games era was very fun and replayable, they lacked that explorative feature that makes 3D platformers more appealing than 2D ones, or at least what should. Sonic Frontiers really has done something amazing, and I think this is the first step in us changing to get better Sonic games in the future. But once again, the aesthetic of the islands being so Zelda-like kind of ruined its chances of standing out completely, and I really think if it was more Sonic-like, it could have stood out a lot more in the market. Sega higher-ups, if you are watching this, which I almost guarantee you probably aren't, could you please just look at the things that you've done right and the things that could have worked and try and piece that together into a single game? And then after that, once you've got that base, think of some new stuff and then build off from there. But don't forget where you came from. But I believe in you guys. I know that you guys can do it. Sonic's my favorite character. That's because of you. That's because of us as well, I guess. Alright, thanks for watching.
하나님이 소처럼 넌 날 빛나게 존재만